Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by English Mountain Spring Water. Winter is here, and that means you're going to need more water than usual to avoid dehydration, dry skin, chapped lips. It all comes with dehydration. Visit EnglishMountainH2O.com to learn how you can have English Mountain Spring Water, the stuff we drink right here and the stuff I have delivered to my home. You can get that delivered to your home or your office in whatever size you need, everything from bottles to bubblers, as they call them. EnglishMountainH2O.com, English Mountain Spring Water. It's been voted the #1 tasting water in the world, and it's from Dandridge, English Mountain Spring Water. All right, let's take a look here. Pro Football Focus put out their top 100 draft prospects, and the top 5, Bryce Young from Alabama, Jalen Carter from Georgia. Number 3, Will Levis from Kentucky. I've saw Dane Brugler of The Athletic had him number 2 this week. Todd McShay earlier this year had him number 4 or number 5. These guys are talking to scouts. Will Levis is going to go high in this draft, and it blows my mind. Then you have Will Anderson from Alabama and then C.J. Stroud from Ohio State. But take a look where they had the Volunteers ranked. 5 of them made the top 100 list, which speaks to the development that you mentioned earlier, Vince or Josh. You wouldn't have had 5 guys on that list before the season. No. But number 1 on the list, I'm sure that everyone figured it would be Jalen Hyatt. Offensive lineman Darnell Wright is the top prospect according to Pro Football Focus. And again, I'm not sure who's doing the scouting for Pro Football Focus when the college game. But Darnell Wright, number 44 prospect, number 66 Jalen Hyatt, number 84 Cedric Tillman, number 91 Hendon Hooker, number 93 Bryce Young. Your reaction to how many they got on the list, your reaction to how they ranked them. Anyone go?
Well, going in, you're right. No one would have said 5 guys. I mean, Hooker, yes, I think so, and maybe Tillman because of the year he had last year. But you probably would have struggled to come up with other guys. I mean, we hadn't seen the best of Darnell Wright yet. And then Byron Young had potential, but he didn't have that productivity. It all depends on the list, and you guys know this, viewers do too. I've seen that list flipped, where Byron Young is the highest ranked, and so others with Hyatt. So that's one of many. But the point is there's guys in that conversation which we wouldn't expect. But you can make a case that all those guys developed, except for Tillman, who dealt with the injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Darnell Wright was a huge part of why Tennessee was so much better this year. The offensive line went from near bottom in the SEC to middle of the pack, which was a big jump. And from a draft standpoint, we're talking about, okay, what does that mean for Tennessee? That's what fans wonder. If you can sell, hey, Darnell Wright went from a guy who's a 5-star to an underachiever to now being a draft pick, maybe a high draft pick in the NFL, that's something you sell to recruits or to the transfer portal. Hey, look what we did for Darnell Wright. We turned him into this in the NFL. You can be next. So that's how you can sell that in the future.
If I'm looking at it, I think Darnell Wright's the best. I think Byron Young would be your second because Tennessee really didn't have another edge rusher in the NFL. I mean, even in the playoff games we're seeing right now, if you've got a defensive line that can get after the quarterback, especially late in games, those guys are worth a lot of money. And his play this season and even in the bowl game, he shows he's got the skills and the talents for it. But I also think Cedric Tillman should be ahead of Jalen Hyatt just because of his physical abilities. You're not going to find many guys.
Much bigger receiver.
Yeah, he's huge. He's a big guy. And in the NFL, you got to win those one-on-one matchups, and you got to have speed and size.
I think Darnell Wright is evidence of, even as a coach watching on TV, we don't spend a lot of time as fans watching the interior line play. We don't see a lot of that. We watch the ball, and I'm guilty of it as much as anyone. But also, he's hand-to-hand, face-to-face combat with a lot of future NFL players in the SEC. So scouts have a large catalog of evidence watching him.
That Will Anderson tape is
that was specifically mentioned in his write-up.
The true freshman from LSU that took the world, I can't remember his name, but that took the world by storm. He was a non-factor in the Tennessee game.
Yeah. 2 other notes I want to throw out here. One, in case you're wondering, Anthony Richardson was number 11 on the list. So Will Levis, number 3, Anthony Richardson, number 11. We'll see.
Potential.
if-
they
Add,
could.
We'll
add
see.
Mark Stoops
If
to the
this
quarterback
stays-
development.
It's not program
That's right.
success in
I
those
said if all
cases.
this stays the same way, then Joe Milton's going to be a top 10 next year, just off of size, speed, and arm strength. Because it seems that's what they're grading
Yeah.
off of.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Jamarcus Russell was the number one pick. Here's my question. When you look at that list of 5 Tennessee guys, Alabama had 6 guys on the list total. Georgia had 5. Ohio State had 6. But here's the twist. Who's better prepared to replace all those guys? Because there's 2 things that, wow, we got a lot of guys on that list. The other side of that is, wow, you got a lot of guys on that list. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State have recruited better for longer, so you would think they'd be better to replace their guys. But at the same time, we just talked about development. Maybe they take guys that weren't as highly recruited previously and turn those into next year's list.
It's why you
Thoughts?
have to add retention with recruiting. It's not just recruiting, it's also retention, because there is no development if you don't keep those kids in your program for multiple years.
So it should just be R&D, retention and development. Yeah.
The 2 questions are Byron Young and Darnell Wright in terms of what replaces them. Those are unproven. I think you feel pretty good about quarterback and wide receiver, though.
Especially with his system.
Right.
Yeah. And the quarterback's still a question, but I
Right.
think it'll be good. And
Right.
whether it's Hendon Hooker good is a
It
different
goes back to
question.
the system, and that's probably why you guys went D-line instead of defensive backfield in the concern conversation, because Byron Young is on that list. That's who you have to
Yeah.
replace. You don't have to replace any defensive backs that scare you.
Right.
And pass rush can help you on the back end, too.
Yes.
That's why it's so
Always.
critical. Yeah.
Former DB coach over here
Well,
agrees that, don't you?
Sack him, we don't have to cover him.
Very good. Daniel, Justin, Josh, Vince, and Mark was here earlier, so thanks to him. Thanks to all of you for joining us every Sunday year-round for the last 20 years. That's an unbelievable fact, and it does not go unappreciated. We thank you. Our sponsors thank you. Get out and see them this week. We'll see you right back here next Sunday on the Sports Source.